So today we are going to discuss another very important topic which is oriented towards mains 2024, that as you can see, heat waves. Now although the monsoon season has arrived and there is some respite, there is some relief from the harsh heat wave conditions which have spanned this year majority a significant proportion of the Indian subcontinent. Still this becomes very important, not because it is something unique. We have been experiencing heat wave situations in summers. These are very natural or normal, especially in the heat zone trough. There is a central heat zone trough which extends from Gujarat all the way to West Bengal, covering areas such as Western Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. Then we have the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, Odisha, West Bengal, even coastal Andhra Pradesh. But now, what the reason for discussing this topic, why it is of prime importance, especially from the GS1 point of view, changes in the geographical phenomena in the GS1 syllabus, and also from the point of view of GS3. And even I'm going to share some fodder or extra points which will help you distinguish your answers in GS2 also. Because heat waves as a complete topic, when we study holistically, which we will do today in this session, it does not only have environmental impacts, it has socio-economic impacts as well. And that is the beauty, or that is the essence of studying for UPSC mains, because you get to know about so many things. So, how can we define heat waves? In simple terms, it is a prolonged period of excessively high temperature, of excessively hot weather, and we can attach the sentence which has adverse impacts on the social, economic, as well as environmental scenario of a particular region. Fine. So, prolonged periods of excessively hot. So basically, this is another topic for mains 2024, continuing or building upon the previous GS1 topic which we studied. I hope you remember that we discussed about the Hindu Kush Himalayas and the changes taking place. And this, I'm also going to link this topic to our previously discussed topic as well. So bear with me. So temperature prolonged, and it is ringing alarm bells. So simple introductory slides. And heat waves cause droughts also in some way. It is a feedback loop. Droughts leading to heat waves and heat waves leading to droughts. I'll explain. First of all, the heat wave definition in India. Definition kya hai? So it is very important because the criteria one should know. Although we have a lot of, see, whenever temperature goes beyond 40 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Celsius does not mean that we are facing the wrath of nature's heat for that particular season. For example, if we consider a month of March, suppose in a place like Delhi, the average maximum temperatures lies around 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. But for particular 2 or 3 days, the temperature goes beyond 40 degrees Celsius. So that might not fit or configure in the scheme of things of IMD, Indian Meteorological Department's criteria, but still we are not acclimated to such high temperatures in that season. Normally, the heat wave, which is also measured, we normally measure from March to June, and sometimes in extreme cases. So, it is possible that in February also we may experience heat wave like conditions, but the IMD does not have any particular fixed criteria for defining heat waves in that particular month. Now, another example in London, you might say a lot of memes were made recently. So it was in the news that it had a temperature of around 26, 27 degrees Celsius. Now, for that, we might switch on the fans or maybe wrap ourselves under a blanket. But the London government or the London authorities marked this day as a day of heat wave. Why? Because the people of that particular region are not acclimated to such high temperatures. For this, for them, for the people of London or England, wherever this temperature exists, for them, this is very serious affair. Okay, so you have to keep this in mind. So now let's get back to the criteria. So basically, IMD Indian Meteorological Department, it takes two criteria primarily, the physiography of the region and temperature criteria. Okay, because we are talking about acclimatization. So in plains, coast and hills, the maximum temperature would not it is not necessary that the maximum temperature in a particular plain will be felt as the same as that in a particular coast or mountainous areas. Okay, so accordingly the average, so for the according to the physiography, the IMD defines the criteria that not any temperature, it is not necessary that only it is 50 degrees or 35 degrees that the IMD will declare a heat wave for a particular region. For plains, the maximum temperature should be greater than or equal to 40 degrees Celsius. For coast, 37 degrees Celsius, hills 30 degrees Celsius. You can relate by the symmetry because the average temperatures, they are in descending orders. In coast, we have the moderating effect. In plains, we have the extremes of climate. In hills, the overall temperature is quite low. So that is. Now, this criteria, if it is once fulfilled, then there are two other, that is temperature criteria. So there are two conditions which have to be fulfilled along with this. One is departure from normal temperature and the other is the actual maximum temperature. So let us consider the case of plains. Let us hypothesize some temperature. So from departure of normal temperature, what this means, for example, I'm in a place, I'm staying in Delhi. So for example, I am facing a temperature of today's temperature, maximum temperature is 47 degrees Celsius. Ideally, the long period average or the average temperature of today's day, the maximum average should be around 41 degrees Celsius. So this temperature fulfills this criteria. So this temperature fulfills this criteria. Moreover, here the condition is 4.5 to 6.54 degrees Celsius. So that is the departure or the difference, which means that the difference between average, how much is this? 6 degrees Celsius. So it lies in this criteria. So the day can be demarcated as a heat wave day. Similarly, if the temperature would have been 49 degrees Celsius, the difference would have been of 8 degrees Celsius and it would have been classified as a severe heat wave day. Fine. And next is the actual maximum temperature. No matter what the departure of the temperature is, if in we have at a particular place temperature exceeding equal or greater than 45 degrees Celsius, it will be classified as a heat wave. And if a day has a particular temperature which exceeds or is equal to 47 degrees Celsius, it will be classified as a severe heat wave day. Now, is there any other criteria that the IMD considers? So we simply IMD says, okay, the temperature is this, departure is this. Okay, let's call it orange alert or red alert. We'll discuss color coding. So there is another criteria. Okay, any other condition is that the IMD says that a heat wave will be declared if only if at least two meteorological stations. Sorry for the delay. So if two meteorological stations in a particular meteorological subdivision experiences heat wave like conditions for at least 2 consecutive days, then only the heat wave will be declared. Fine. So, this is an important condition. Now, why we should ought to discuss the color codes, because in the past years, UPSC mains examiner has asked this type of question regarding the alerts, the color coded alerts of the related to the cyclones. Fine. So similarly, don't think that UPSC's obsession with particular colors is over. It can ask anything related. But I'm sure once we cover this presentation, once I cover this topic with you, everything you need to be aware of or accustomed or acquainted with the topic of heat waves, you can answer any question related to this. Okay, you have to be sincere, of course. So green, normal code, maximum temperature roundabout normal, comfortable, no suggested actions. You can just relax and have fun. Be updated yellow, heat alert when heat wave exists in isolated pockets for 2 days. So this is criteria not made by me. You have to remember some of the facts as they are. So tolerable for general public, but moderate concern for vulnerable. Vulnerable population includes the elderly, the aged people, pregnant women, infants, and small children. And obviously, these days, a lot of documentaries or a lot of news has been revolving around the laborers who work outside and outdoors and are exposed to excessive heat, like the brick kiln workers. You might have seen the videos on YouTube. Okay. So the suggested actions: avoid heat exposure, wear lightweight clothes, wear light colored clothes, wear loose clothes, wear cotton clothes. Although you tend to pertain to the or conform with the society in case with regards to fashion sense, anyways. Cover head with caps, hats, anything, cloth. Then orange alert, severe heat wave for 2 days, and heat wave. These two terms are different. Severe heat wave for 2 days, heat wave for greater than 4 days. Heat illness for people exposed to excessively exposed to sun, the impact high concern. So they are just playing around with words. Moderate concern, high concern for vulnerable. Who are the vulnerable people? We have already discussed. Avoid heat exposure, dehydration. Obviously, drink sufficient water even if not thirsty. So this is one important thing. Even if you are finding this lecture boring, I suggest there's a scientific finding. The scientists say that if you're finding something boring, so to refresh or rejuvenate your cognition, you should hydrate yourself. Keep drinking sips of water. I have experienced that. Okay. So you know already the drinks, lemonades, which we call fondly shikanji. Avoid the the carts or the vendors outside selling these lemonades, the banta. Okay. Anyways, then you can, if excessive dehydration, you can resort to ORS, oral rehydration solution. You can also make it, but at home, but there is a specific salt to sugar ratio. Then I came across this new word, Torani. Okay. So this is rice water. Fine. Then you can drink buttermilk or chach. You can drink lassi. So these examples you can quote. It's not just for the sake of it that I am posting my knowledge or examples. ORS and homemade drinks. Take action, extreme heat alert, severe heat wave for greater than 2 days, severe heat wave for greater than 6 days. Heat illness and stroke in all ages. No age group will be spared. All the people, all the citizens of the society are vulnerable to heat illnesses, heat stroke, hyperthermia, cramps. Extreme care needed, exceptional, especially for the vulnerable population. Fine. So these are the, now we consider the heat wave trends in India. Why are we so obsessed, or why are we emphasizing so much on this phenomena, even though it is not included in the Disaster Management Act itself? It is not considered as a disaster, but taking lieu or taking into consideration the recent havoc which has been played by this phenomena on the lives, economy, as well as the environment, states have reached out to the government. They have besieged the government to include it in the Disaster Management Act. Anyways, so trends, some data I picked up. So 1981 to 1990, 413 heat waves, less number of deaths, but deaths are the heat wave days increased to 600 days, heat related deaths. So recent years, severe heat waves. In this, I discussed about the major heat wave zone, but some important trends which were there in the news also, if you have, I just would like to discuss that even the states, even even states like Kerala and Sikkim experienced heat wave like conditions. So there, although we have this region which is particularly or regularly under the wrath or under the influence of heat wave, but these states have experienced high temperatures, and this year, especially in the March April season, the peninsular India and Northeast India, which is a great matter of concern. Northeast, during March and April, it experienced heat wave like conditions, and now during monsoon season, you might have read in the news, you might have come across news talking about the flash floods in the Assam Brahmaputra Valley, landslides in Azol, in Mizoram and Manipur, leading to death. So we are experiencing extremes of weather, fine. And then from May onwards, it shifted towards this region. Now, one important thing I missed out. Have you ever considered the difference between a heat wave and there is a something, is there is a term known as Lu? So, what is the difference? They're not the same. Okay, so this slight differences, the slight anomalies is what makes geography and environment interesting. So, heat wave refers to dry, hot conditions. Definition we have already discussed. Whereas on the other hand, Lu is a local northwesterly wind which blows during the summer season. Okay. Now, before discussing the factors behind increasing heat waves, I would like you to know or recollect what actually leads to heat waves, because I have already told you that heat waves are normal in the summer season, in the April, May, June. So, normally for the heat wave, some conditions have to be fulfilled. For example, high temperature should be there, which we enjoy or suffer. High temperature, which we enjoy or suffer during the summer season or the hot weather season. Then clear skies, less cloudiness. So why this condition? Because the sun's rays, they are unobstructed by, they are not obstructed due to the lack of the clouds, and they heat or provide direct insulation to the ground. Okay. Then lack of moisture, because we know, so right now we have entered the monsoon season, so that is why we can heave a sigh of relief from the excessive heat. And finally, we have the anticyclonic condition. So I hope you have studied sincerely for the prelims. Nonetheless, we know anticyclonic conditions. So in the northern hemisphere, basically anticyclone is any condition, is a high pressure region where the wind moves outward from a center position of high pressure. I'll not go into detail. It is beyond the scope of the discussion. So we have the high pressure region, and The winds they move out, and due to the Coriolis force in the northern hemisphere, the winds are deflected towards the right in the northern hemisphere, and due to this, the anticyclonic circulation in the northern hemisphere is in a clockwise direction. Now, the important point is that if there is high pressure or cyclonic circulation conditions near the ground, combined with these three conditions, it will not allow the it will not allow the convection or the rising of air to take place, and it will not allow the convection process and then subsequent condensation precipitation process. So it will trap the hot air to the keep the hot air to the ground. But again, the high pressure conditions they work differently in different regions. Okay, for example, I'm going to take two examples which were particularly two states which were in news, particularly due to the excessive heat wave in the hot weather season in April and May. So one was Rajasthan and one was Odisha. So anticyclonic conditions affected both the states, but in different ways. How? So anticyclonic high pressure conditions were there. So it disallowed the convection process. It kept the air from convection and the hot air remained to the ground. But here in Odisha, the anticyclonic conditions they were present in the ocean. So the anticyclonic condition they this did not allow the cool sea breeze. The lack of anticyclonic condition it did not allow the flow of cool breeze to the Odisha, to the interior of the heartland, because like here the high pressure is spreading in a way, spreading the hot air in this land. Here, if anticyclonic conditions would have existed over water, it would have pushed the cool sea breeze towards the heartland. So here anticyclonic conditions were present. Here absence of anticyclonic conditions. Moreover, this year Mumbai, which is a coastal state which is supposed to experience moderate temperatures, it also bore the brunt of heat wave. So we'll discuss one reason, the change in wind pattern. So here also one of the reason was that the sea breeze, you have two breezes, land breeze and sea breeze. So due to various factors, especially climate change, the balance was disturbed between the two breezes. So the land breeze was more prominent as compared to the sea breeze. So land breeze moving from land to sea, and the cool sea breeze was not allowed to enter Mumbai, the coastal part of Maharashtra, and lower temperatures. Moreover, sometimes what has been observed that instead of land and sea breezes, the breezes also move parallel to the coast. So you know that Mumbai not only has experienced heat wave in the past few months, but also severe pollution, which is unlike Mumbai. Fine. So this is very important. So factors behind. So I'll just so high atmospheric pressure systems. This I have already explained. Prevent normal movement of air masses. Climate variability. This is very important. The IMD director head has also clarified that currently Now we have just entered the La Nina phase. You should be acquainted with all these terms and you should understand what they mean. But previous to this, till June, we had been experiencing El Nino over the past 7 8 months. And El Nino, by definition, it means the abnormal warming of the equatorial waters of the Pacific Ocean, and that leads to widespread or global warming all over. So, that was also a component. Drought and dry conditions. Now, how does this influence? Because, like, if there are drought or dry conditions, this means there is less soil moisture. Less soil moisture, that is, the heat trapped by the land will not be regulated or balanced. Moisture is less, so it will not balance or regulate the heat, and the land will heat up more. The land will then radiate heat, and that too slowly, and that will contribute to the heat wave conditions. Geography and topography. The best example for this is the California Valley. It is surrounded by two ranges, the Coast Range and Sierra Nevada. So there is a local wind, Santa Ana. You might have studied this in prelims for geography. So this is trapped and funneled between the two ranges in the valley, and this increases the temperature. Changes in wind patterns, like I have discussed some of the examples in Mumbai, in Odisha, in Rajasthan. Moreover, heat 2 or 3 years back, the Mediterranean region also suffered from heat wave. This was due to the excessive movement of hot air from the northern parts of Africa. Global warming, burning fossil fuels, deforestation, industrial processes, urban heat island effect. Now, this question has been asked in 2013 mains. We'll discuss in brief because it is now a very common topic. So, what is urban heat island effect? Basically, in cities, what happens is there is very less forestry. Forests are almost negligible or absent, so that shade, that greenery, which is responsible for moderating or balancing the temperatures, that is absent. Fine. And this concrete surfaces, asphalt surfaces, high congregation of buildings together, they absorb the heat instead of reflecting the heat, and then they slowly emanate or disperse their heat also, which leads to this urban heat island. It it is an island. By island, what we, in geographical terms, island is a secluded area surrounded by. So this is a secluded area. If there is a semi urban village area or forest area nearby, so that will experience much less temperature. There will be a difference of at least 2 or 3 degree temperature than this. So this is known as the urban heat island effect. One thing to note is, in this case, these two are primarily the human induced causes behind the increasing heat wave effect, and rest we can more or less attribute to the natural causes. Okay. One more phenomena which just came to my mind, which not only is the temperature, daytime temperature increasing, but you might have come across this term, warm nights. So greater than normal temperatures. Okay. So here also there is a criteria for defining warm nights, that the daytime temperature should be at least 40 degrees Celsius, and the nighttime temperature should be at least 5 degrees Celsius above normal. Okay. And combined with humidity, you know what humidity does? It prevents the evaporation of sweat from our bodies, It disturbs the cooling mechanism, and that is why humid warm nights are one which have to be dealt with seriousness. They can become very fatal. Okay, heat dome has also been in reason. Now this also involves anticyclonic circulation, the high pressure regions, but at upper level regions. So there is a diagram here. Normally you won't expect high latitude regions such as Canada or this high altitude regions or states in United States like Washington and Oregon to experience heat waves, but they have in the past. And some terms I'll just discuss in brief, not to confuse you. So you know about upper air when we talked about the high pressure cyclonic circulation in the previous slide, we are talking about the lower level circulation. In the upper level near the tropopause, we have jet streams. So these are narrow, meandering, swift bands of wind which are embedded in the upper tropospheric westerlies and they circumvent the entire globe. Definitions are important. So this sometimes what happens is these they form ridges and troughs. I'm not going to explain how and why they are formed. So these ridges, they create high pressure situations aloft in the higher troposphere, and this high pressure region forces the wind to move down. Whatever wind is coming due to high pressure, it has to go somewhere. It cannot rise, it is pushed down. So what will happen if it is pushed down? It will be compressed. Compression will lead to warming. Obviously, why? General physics and chemistry, when compression takes place, the molecules of that particular state of matter, they are brought closer together, collisions increase, kinetic energy increases, heat produced increases, and even due to this, the clouds, whatever clouds are being formed, they are also dispersed. The heat is not allowed to rise, and that is why no convection takes place, and whatever little moisture or condensation might have taken place in absence of this heat dome, that does not occur. So here I think the GIF you have already seen. So some and I was talking in the initial part of the lecture how these heat waves are related to other multi-hazard events like droughts, wildfires, or forest fires, because heat waves will lead to higher than normal temperatures. They will provide suitable conditions for the disasters like droughts or the wildfires. Then the droughts, due to lack of moisture, we have already discussed, they will provide a feedback loop for the increase in intensity of heat waves. And the wildfires also will produce the greenhouse gases from the fossil fuels, carbon dioxide. They will trap further heat. They will also act as a feedback loop for increasing persistence and intensity of heat waves, and so it goes on. So you can see how they are linked. So I think the GIF has stopped. So here, this shows the jet stream. So this ridge and this dome-like structure. Even we know the air which is warm in a particular region, this is the Mediterranean region which suffered from the heat wave. So even warm air is light. So in comparison to the cold air, it will rise. But due to high pressure at high upper level atmospheric circulation, it will act as a dome or a lid like a pan or the pressure cooker, and it will not allow the air to further rise. It will force the air to sink, subside, and then compress, consequently heating it. The urban heat island, this I've already explained. This is just an infographic to demonstrate or delineate the difference what farms, parks, or forestry makes. So you can see this high temperatures, such difference. This is the degree Celsius temperature. So You can see the differences is, so here we again residential suburb, the temperature again increases, but wherever there is forestry, green spaces, so the temperature will be moderated or regulated. So this was the question asked in 2013, formation of heat islands and temperature inversion. You can practice this question and submit if you want. Okay, so impacts of heat waves, this is very important. Again, we are going by the structure as I always do. So we have discussed what the heat waves are, what are the factors, what factors have exacerbated or worsened the intensity or persistence of heat waves, some associated phenomena, finally impact, and then the ways to mitigate or adapt to heat waves, and finally conclusion. Okay, so this will help you tackle any question which you encounter in mains. So human health, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, hyperthermia. There is a term contrasting with hyperthermia due to very cold temperatures, hypothermia. Okay, so high temperatures, energy demand, strain on power grids, blackouts. In my locality, the demand was so much that the huge circuit boards which are installed outside, they also caught fire. So there was so much energy demand there. So recently, related to that, one further point from the point of view of GS3, in news there was something known as power markets. So you can go ahead and find out what exactly is this. This is beyond the scope of this discussion. Economic impact, productivity of workers, brick kiln workers. I talked about the documentaries, and according to ILO, International Labour Organization, it has been found out that a temperature of 34 degrees Celsius reduces the labor productivity by almost 50%. Fine. Food security. So heat waves, again, heat waves, droughts, food security is affected, and examples are plenty. Lack of western disturbances, again, so heat waves were not mitigated, moisture was not there, rabi crops were affected, and we still, although we now have sufficient technological facilities, good advancements, and states like Jharkhand, Bihar, UP have come forward, becoming the some of the major producers of wheat. But again, the rabi crops failed, and in Punjab and Haryana, we again have to depend on those states. Fine, demand of irrigation water. Already we know the dwindling level of groundwater, water resources, drying up of water, not only due to the demand but also the evaporation. Okay, so all this. So steps taken by the government, these are in general. Heat action plans. So heat action plans, they are currently applicable, or they are complied with in 23 states. Public health preparedness, managing heat related illnesses is general, providing the general services. Focus on vulnerable groups, elderly, the pregnant women, the infants or the small children. Awareness campaigns, about 100 districts have initiated these campaigns. So these are, apart from that, IMD also, IMD has also initiated, you might have heard of this Nowcast system. Then हर मौसम हर घर मौसम, use of SMS. Again, interesting thought. Again, one of the major disasters which has wreaked havoc, especially in the hilly states, are cloud bursts. How are these associated with rising temperatures? Can anyone tell me? So, because overall, if we consider the overall warming of the earth, it has been established by the meteorologists that 1 degree Celsius rise in temperature leads to the water holding capacity of the atmosphere by 7%. Okay. So not only is the evaporation increasing, the capacity or the ability of the atmosphere or the air to hold that moisture increases. And when that moisture accumulates in great amounts and then suddenly decides to condense, we have excess heavy torrential downpour leading to cloudbursts. Okay. And this temperature, this trend, additional point I'm just discussing, that the average temperature increase in India is around 0.66 degrees Celsius. This is much less as compared to the overall, which is greater than 1 degree Celsius. But we are not going to discuss that in detail, just a further point. The way forward, so effective, not just implementation or exercising or the signing of policies, effective implementation of heat action plans, sustainable cooling. Okay, like some examples are ventilated homes, proper ventilation. We can take examples from the Havelis or Mahals in Rajasthan, where there was natural ventilation, there were no coolers, desert coolers, or air conditioners. Then porotherm bricks. This example you can quote. Porotherm bricks are a special type of bricks which have holes or spaces in between them. So instead of the normal solid bricks, you can apply them. We'll not go into the science, the physics, and chemistry over this. So they prevent the excess heating of the walls and excess absorption of the heat from the walls of the particular residence. Heat wave mitigation plans. Okay, so there is the in news example is the Harit Haram project of the Telangana government of providing urban green spaces, providing drinking water facilities in the open spaces, creation of green spaces, gardens. How will this affect not only from the environmental point of view, but also social, spiritual, cultural? People can mingle. Okay, so that ways, energy efficient solutions using the desert coolers. Example is using desert coolers instead of the energy guzzling air conditioners, especially in dry weather, because we all know desert coolers, they are not much effective in a humid season, especially in the monsoon season. Fine. So this should be the way forward, some implementations, some measures. And this interesting case study came. So also, again, way forward, we all talk about renewable energy, rooftop solar in urban areas, electric vehicles. This grassroots level participation is very important. So this Mahila Housing Trust, it is an organization dedicating to assisting women in the grassroots levels. So they help them escape the extreme heat waves in Ahmedabad. This had made over 20,000 homes cooler. Okay, so it also deals with the women empowerment. You can quote this example. Now, what exactly it is in simple terms, it is the solar paint, solar white paint. The Mahila Housing Trust also calls it or refers to it the cool roof technology. So the basic concept is to paint the roofs white, but not just any type, any simple layman type of paint, special type of reflective paint. Because what happens is in these areas, they generally don't have electricity. So I was reading in this documentary, in this case study, this was in Down to Earth. So not only do they lack the electricity, whenever they have a tendency or they are off, they also have to forcibly resort to stealing electricity or purchasing electricity from others at exorbitant prices. And because of the congested nature of these slums, the lack of ventilation, these fans or coolers, they have to run all all the day long, and that was leading to very high temperature, very high bills, electricity bills, which was another added problem. So a solution, in a way to provide solution to their problems, it was exacerbated or worsened with a high electricity bill. So this solar white paint, among with several others. So this Mahila Housing Trust you can quote as a good example to differentiate or distinguish your answer from other candidates. And finally, time to write an answer. That is the main criteria or main agenda, main motive why we are conducting this session. So this is a sample question. What is the Indian Meteorological Department's criteria for declaring heat waves? And examine the social, economic, and environmental impacts of excessive temperatures. So, again, the point is how to present. Now we have a lot of data, but we cannot write an answer directly picking up in the same structure or in the same way or the same sequence of slides as I have narrated. So, how you can see? So, first of all, don't copy the question statement in the answer itself. You can start like this, that in India heat waves occur normally in the periods or months from March to June, and sometimes they extend to July also. Then IMD, or the Indian Meteorological Department, has given two criterias, basic two criterias. Physiography, I'm just writing the keywords, physiography and temperature, to demarcate or assign days as heat wave days. Then you can either write the body, start the body. This is the introduction in 20 words. You can write, start with the body. So you can either write in paragraph form or you can make the same table as I have shown in the initial slides. Okay. Then we come to, so this will complete the first part, examine the, so again, you should avoid writing sentence like following are the social environment, and you cannot directly start writing the impacts. So you can be a little innovative to form connections with the next part of answering the question. For example, you can write like this: the the heat waves, they amplify the risks associated with human health, hazards such as droughts and wildfires, and have far reaching impacts on ecosystem. So you can either write this entire or you can shorten the sentence. So you can now start. Next, you don't have to write these are the following impacts. So you can just write, start with the next body. So you can write about, first you can give the subheading the social impacts. So what are the social impacts? So social, the vulnerable population is at risk. We have already discussed which is the vulnerable population. Then the comorbidities, they are exacerbated, like respiratory ailments, asthma. Then you can add to this water shortage. Now see how I am linking this to the social aspect. Example, my own city, Delhi. Now, in some places, what is happening in some district, in some constituencies, what is happening is water tanker mafia is in play. So where there is shortage of water in the urban or semi-urban areas or in the fringes fringes, so there the if the water supply is cut off, these huge tankers consisting of thousands of liters of water they arrive, and you might have seen pictures in news and all. The small children, the people, they start climbing on the top of the tankers, and then there was a report that they pay rupees 400 for some quantity of water. So there are groups or organizations specially dedicated to this water tanker proliferation, this business. And so this is so social issues they create, and especially the vulnerable. The these shortages, the social aspects, they hurt the vulnerable or the downtrodden the most. Then we have the economic. So economic, what we can include, the ILO report, which we discussed, 34 degrees. It reduces productivity of laborers by almost 50%. Then we have the power outages, excessive demand. Fine. So this leads to economic, and obviously when the electricity is not there, the heat waves are there. So excessive demand on the power, the mainstreaming of the grid is not possible. So this economic, so great loss to the GDP occurs. And then finally, if you can come up with more things, you can let me know. Environmental. So this new you can discuss it helps in thriving or providing suitable conditions for the proliferation and spread of pests and insects. Then it leads to drought like conditions, feedback loops to forest fires, wildfires. Okay, entire biodiversity is affected. And as a conclusion, what you can again avoid repeating the sentence. So you can give the disaster management act, so a perspective or write something of unique. What I can think of is that you can conclude your answer by writing that there was a report that heat waves, they are the disasters which contribute to the maximum number of deaths after those caused by cyclones, and there is a need to fine tune the heat wave declaration criteria. It should go beyond the declaration just based on the maximum temperatures. There is a need to fine tune and include various other aspects and stakeholders. Maybe you can add inclusion in the Disaster Management Act, and one possible diagram you can give around about the urban heat island or environment. You can draw the drought prone regions. You can talk about the heat dome regions. So all this urban, this you can discuss. Fine. So that was the main topic, which will help you counter or tackle, properly answer any mains question regarding or dealing with this, revolving around this topic. So, so don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. Be this guy. Study properly, sincerely. Okay. 2 months. And if you have any questions, any doubts, you can reach me at this email. Jai Hind.